All right, friends, let's dive right in. We've got our substantive procedures, and as we saw in audit risk lesson, you can also call substantive procedures tests of details, substantive procedures, also known as substantive tests. So first off, just understanding all the different names that we could possibly refer to them as. Good there? Awesome. Let's keep moving. These are the activities performed by the auditor to detect material misstatement or fraud at the assertion level. The physical procedures, the tests, the actual actions. Now, a lot of what we see here ties in with many other lessons. I'll reference the audit risk lesson. I'll reference the business cycles lessons with the revenue cycle and inventory cycle, etc. And there's just a lot of tie-ins. Now, first off, those are just critically important parts of the exam, so I don't feel bad in mentioning them again. But we're going to see them from slightly different perspectives. Obviously, in those lessons, we focused on these testing procedures from perspective of a cycle, or from, say, even in audit evidence, how the evidence applied to the testing procedures. Here, we're solely going to focus on doing those procedures, and there's going to be a lot of questions to be gained, a lot of points to be earned from this section. Now, this is pulled from the AICPA. What do they want us to know? Well, this section establishes standards and provides guidance on determining overall responses and designing and performing further audit procedures to respond to the assessed risks of material misstatement. Let's just think about that for a second. We know, well, and it's a good check, what are the risks of material misstatement? That is inherent risk times detection risk, times control risk. Ooh, gotta check myself there. And overall audit risk is audit risk equals the risk of material misstatement times detection risk. Detection risk, how do we lower that? We do tests of details. So we are going to respond to the risk of material misstatement by doing audit procedures, which are tests of details. So it all comes together. You see, it should all make sense. At the financial statement and relevant assertion levels in an audit, and on evaluating the sufficiency and appropriateness of the audit evidence. And obviously, we saw that in our evidence lesson. In particular, this section provides guidance about implementing the third standard of fieldwork, which is testing, as follows. Let's see what we've got about that. Okay, the auditor must obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Got a whole lesson on that. And then we want to reduce audit risk to an acceptably low level. In order to do that, the auditor should determine the overall responses, the overall testing, to address the assessed risks of material misstatement at the financial statement level, and should design and perform further procedures, tests of details, same thing, whose nature, timing, and extent are responsive to the assessed risks of material misstatement at the relevant assertion level. The overall responses and nature and timing and extent of the further audit procedures to be performed are matters of professional judgment. We're going to see here, and as we saw also in audit risk, the tests that you do, yes, there are many tests that are just required by the AICPA, by PCAOB if you're doing an issuer's audit. And what are those? For example, you need to test all material accounts receivable balances. You always need to send confirmations to all banks that the client is doing business with to confirm those cash balances. However, past other required testing methods, it's your professional judgment. Obviously, what's material to financial statements, which areas have the potential for more significant material misstatement, that's something you're going to need to be aware of and apply your judgment to. Let's talk about a nice overview of some important concepts we'll see here. Overall responses. What are overall responses? Well, this section provides guidance to the auditor in determining overall responses to address risks of material misstatement at the financial statement level, and provides guidance on the nature of those responses. What are responses? Really just a fancy way of saying those are your testing procedures. What are your responses to a risk? It's to test something and hopefully lower that risk. Audit procedures responsive to risks of material misstatement at the relevant assertion level. What does this mean? Well, this section provides guidance to the auditor in designing and performing further audit procedures, including tests of the operating effectiveness of controls, where relevant or necessary, and substantive procedures whose nature, timing, and extent are responsive to the assessed risks of material misstatement at the relevant assertion level. Reminding ourselves, relevant assertion level, got existence, valuation, allocation, accuracy, completeness, all of those. Obviously going to come up many times throughout the exam. In addition, the section here is going to include matters the auditor should consider in determining the nature, timing, and extent of the further audit procedures. The extent, how thoroughly are we going to do them? How much are we going to do? The timing, when are we going to do them? Obviously got that concept of interim testing. Are we going to do it full year as well? And the nature, which ones are you actually going to do? Evaluating the sufficiency and appropriateness of the audit evidence obtained. This section provides guidance to the auditor in evaluating whether the risks assessments remain appropriate and to conclude whether sufficient appropriate audit evidence has been obtained. Like I said, we got a whole lesson on audit evidence. However, we are testing through getting audit evidence. We are looking at transactions and seeing if the audit evidence backs those up. That's going to be something that we constantly want to keep in mind. Lastly here, documentation. This section is going to talk about documentation guidance. Like I said, we've also got another lesson on documentation. It all comes together. This is just one big engagement. Overall, this is really just going to apply to audits because in audits, we're the ones doing the actual substantive procedures as compared to other particular engagement types. The auditor's overall response. Well, the auditor's overall response to address the assessed risks of material misstatement at the financial statement level may include emphasizing to the audit team the need to maintain professional skepticism in gathering and evaluating audit evidence, assigning more experienced staff or those with specialized skill, or using specialists. These are all concepts that we've seen throughout the course so far, providing more supervision or incorporating additional elements of unpredictability in the selection of further audit procedures to be performed. These are all things to keep in mind when you're doing your testing. Again, how does this apply when you're testing? These are all possible actions and things to take and things to consider. Additionally, the auditor may make general changes to the nature, timing, or extent of further audit procedures as an overall response. For example, performing substantive procedures at period end instead of at an interim date. I mentioned interim many times. We're going to mention it many more times in this lesson today for you. Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.